talk about. So we have Steve Hay, and see if I can read. My computer wasn't working. I don't know his. He is from Premier Nutrition. I know that much. Okay, Senior Director, Consumer Experience, and then of course Melanie De Blasio. She's the Director of Media at, as John mentioned, Ocean Spray. And so I'm going to grab the clicker before I sit. And why don't you guys briefly introduce yourself? Let them know who you are.
Hi, everyone. As Lisa mentioned, Melanie DiBiasio, Director of Media and Martech at Ocean Spray. I have been with the company for almost 12 years in a variety of different roles, but basically always kind of handling our digital and some of our media in some capacity. So excited to talk to you guys today.
Great.
Thank you, Steve Hay, Premier Nutrition, oversee consumer experience. So within our organization, that encompasses our social and digital COE, as well as an internal creative services group. On the job for about 6 months. Prior to that, agency side for the bulk of my career, running integrated strategy, so a combination of digital as well as brand.
Great. And does he not have a radio voice or what?
Sorry. Try to work on my inflections.
When I was first talking to him on the phone, I'm like, wow, he sounds like he should be on the radio. Anyway, aside, that was just a little aside. All right, so just in terms of talk about what have you been, we're getting back to a little bit of the testing, but what have you been trying to test to break through, and where are you seeing the best results? And Steve, we can start with you.
I think not unlike all other speakers over the last couple of days, we're testing and learning quite a bit. And probably the area where we're leaning in the most from a test and learn capacity is in TikTok. I think everyone's trying to figure that out, and we're doing that. We have 2 primary brands where we're investing a lot in test and learns there. We're in a unique situation where we have a bit of a supply constrained environment, not unlike others. Fun time to be a marketer. So given that, we're really focused on content, sort of brand fundamentals within social, and that's where we're investing a lot of time on the test and learn front.
Yeah, and on our side, obviously also on TikTok, and that's been a great test and learn platform for us too, as we kind of got thrust into it a bit. And so, you know, I think one of our biggest opportunities from a test and learn standpoint with video in particular, TikTok and otherwise, has been like, how heavy do we need to go in terms of production? So, you know, we were always historically like very heavily produced, creative. Everything that came from us was, you know, it was expensive, it took a lot of time, it was polished, it was perfect. It was a lot of recipe content typically historically, and we've shifted a little bit more into lifestyle, and we've also shifted a little bit more into scrappy, like, you know, videos from our phones, and I think TikTok helped get us there. And we've found that there's a way to really balance that well, so that you don't have to spend quite as much money and time and effort on production.
Well, let's get, just in case, I mean, I don't know, probably everyone knows what you're talking about, but just in case they don't, and that way you can go into a little bit more specifics on it. So let me see if I can figure out, do we want to play the first part of it yet? Right, is it the green button? Oh, the big green button. Okay. I'm doing the big green button. Oh. We're not seeing it in the front here, so do you know what's up?
Yeah, yeah. I could tell you every move in that video. I've seen it a couple times. So for those of you who maybe that was your first time seeing it, or if not, I think most people probably not. That was a video from September 2020. That man's name is Nathan Apodaca. His story was that he had a old truck. It often broke down, and he loved his longboard, so it was always in his truck. And that day his truck happened to break down, so he hopped on his longboard to get to work, and he's just a huge fan of Ocean Spray. So he just brought his 64-ounce bottle, because doesn't everybody do that? And he was an aspiring creator. I think he was fairly big, but not quite as big as he is now, when he released that video. And it hit at the right time. Again, it was people were, kind of down and not knowing what was going on in the world at that point in time. And it was just like this dude, like riding on his longboard and drinking his juice. Like he's just so happy. And everyone just needed that. So it went extremely viral. It ended up, became a TikTok TV ad as well. If some of you saw that, we did not pay for that. So that was all earned media from Nathan. And so we partnered with him a couple times from there. But when that video came out, TikTok was of course on our radar, but we had zero plans to launch the platform. We of course had to. And so again, that's where we were kind of thrust into testing and learning and just figuring it out very quickly with no plan and no strategy.
Well, and before we get to Steve with your stuff, just how were you able to optimize? I mean, obviously this got huge brand awareness for you guys. I mean, not that you really need that much brand awareness, but in the sense it made you a little cooler, not that you weren't, but so how were you able to then optimize that and leverage that in more, wider brand messaging?
Yeah, so it was really the moment was really exciting because obviously with the spotlight and with the number of people that saw the video and the audience, it gave us a right to play and a right to speak to a younger audience that historically we had been struggling with. We had been trying to talk to millennials. We weren't even close to Gen Z, and we really ended up hitting both, but we did see a sales lift, as a result of that video. And so we then took that and started a retention strategy of how do we now keep these, people who just started, interacting with our brand and buying our products. How do we keep them in the fold? And so we have audiences that we started messaging to, based on new buyers to our brand, and we brought them in and started testing with our brand messaging, which they, were not familiar with. And because the timing was right, we were actually just, moving away from an older campaign and trying to launch a new campaign. So it also opened up a door for us to say, okay, now we can probably, go in maybe a little bit of a different direction and an edgier direction and a younger, feel to our campaign that we were just thinking through. And so if we want to actually just show the next spot, this is where we landed from the first spot in our brand campaign.
This is a cranberry, full of ancient antioxidant, taste bud blasting power. We put power into everything we make. Ocean spray. What will you do with all that power?
So that was, again, kind of our spot, our new brand campaign. We're really focused on bringing now the message about the cranberry and the power that it has to an audience who is receptive to that message. And again, the focus really on the cranberry and the superfruit benefits was an insight specific to millennials and Gen Z and something that they're looking for in what they consume.
Do we want to go to the next?
Yeah, so
we'll break that. I want to break down more of what you just did, but let's go to the next
Yep.
creative.
So just to set up, so we, as all of you know, Thanksgiving is an important time of year for Ocean Spray. We actually typically lean away from being really heavy from media standpoint in the holiday time frame because we don't need it as much, and it's cluttered and it's expensive, as we all know. So we have a heavy digital campaign, and I'll talk a little bit about where this actually ended up airing on TV after. But it was originally only for digital, for online video. And again, letting us get a little bit more edgy and more fun. Everyone knows that the cranberry sauce is the most important part of the Thanksgiving table. If you don't know that, now you do. And really the insight that drove our holiday campaign this year was, not only is the cranberry sauce the most important part, but without it and without cranberries in all the different products, the Thanksgiving table is very beige. Everything is beige and it's bland and it's not exciting. So add some pops of red, some pops of color, and of course some jiggle, and it becomes fun. So the cranberry brings the party, and we can show the spot.
That's awesome. I have to say, and this is everything you were saying, because obviously you're reaching the younger consumer and you're getting this new message across. So that was in a more fun way, but in terms of that superfruit, are you worried about alienating your core audience? Like, how are you sort of keeping them both in the fold?
Yeah, it's a great question. It is definitely on our radar. I think, actually that's part of the insight of like, we didn't put this on TV. And so we felt like we had a little bit more room to be fun and creative, and that, and we're targeting obviously a very specific audience. And we've certainly had haters for this campaign, but we love it. It's helped to drive the buzz. Honestly, it's like the people who hate it are just as important as the people who love it. We've never done anything on Reddit before, but this campaign got us on Reddit and, organically, and there's a lot of fun and exciting conversations happening because of it. But, we do have still a balance to this campaign. So in other places like Pinterest, we have a more recipe focused Thanksgiving campaign that you'd expect from the brand. And, that's where we're going to see more of our core audience. We have, via our Cranberry Club email newsletter, like that is also, I think, similar to General Mills. It tends to be grandma who's reading that, and that's the content that she's going to get. And so we have a balance of this type of content in the campaign, and then also stuff that appeals more so to our traditional audience.
I just think we have to have a hat tip for the courageousness to go with the idea, because too often your question, Lisa, ends up in resulting an idea like that hitting the cutting room floor instead of making it to market. And just I think it's great insight, really well done.
Well, but I want to say, if you hadn't had the TikTok, do you think they would have gone to here? You know what I mean? Like,
no.
So it's that testing small. Not that you really tested, your guy did, but and it's funny, he's older. He's definitely not a millennial, but it resonated with that group. I want to get more, because I know you gave a little tease about where it ended up, but let's first go into with Steve, what you've been finding that's working, that's breaking through, and then we'll go back into a little bit more detail of everything. So
Sure, yeah, you can advance the slide.
Need to do a little lead in first,
you can jump to it.
Okay.
We can all feel the fall vibes of our pumpkin spice LTO. So just a little bit of context. We are testing a lot within TikTok. We're seeing some success there. Not at the virality of dog face, but it is an area that we're investing. But when you ask kind of the tough question of what's really breaking through and working hardest, for us, kind of ironically, it comes back to product as hero and really immersive visual storytelling that breaks through in the feed and really it has a thumb-stopping effect. So this is an example of creative for an LTO pumpkin spice. That's a really good example of that. The brief here is pretty simple. It's, how do we take these limited time flavors and bring them to life in mouth-watering ways that are going to grab attention? And the agency team has some brilliant art directors that really kind of embrace that in an imaginative way. So I think we have another example on the next slide. So pumpkin spice is still out there on shelf, so be sure to grab some. Winter mint chocolate is just hitting the shelves as we speak, I believe, right, Nick? So launch, but you can just see the playfulness and the visual storytelling when you're exposed to this within the digital ecosystem, it really grabs attention. And it makes sense from a brand perspective because we're a brand. It's an RTD shake, as you can see, with great nutritionals, but we really went on taste and we're pioneers in flavor. So doubling down on that from a creative perspective has been really effective for us. And we'll close with my favorite, root beer float. Just an incredible visual story and flavor adventure, kind of picking up on the flavor cues, the nostalgia of the ice cream parlor with the red and white stripes, the hot air balloons, the little sailboats with the root beer candies. The studio team actually created a river in the studio. They look like mad scientists. This is on the agency side, still scrappy. I think the finishing touches on this look kind of high production, but this is very scrappy work. And clouds made of ice cream, really quite beautiful. So if you go to the next slide, we have a look at how this shows up in the feed. Tap one more time, Lisa, you're doing great. So, when you experience this in Instagram, which is an environment where visual inspiration is really kind of emphasized on the left, that's our teaser. We like to launch those before the product is actually out on shelf, a few days before, hype up our community. We know they love us for flavor. And then on the right side, kind of going back to Lisa from Albertson's talk yesterday, this is the work with us side of the equation. So we'll also brief influencers. That brief is very open-ended. We try to loosen the grip on the brand. We know that they have their own sort of editorial strengths, their own creative strengths. So it's about how do they bring this flavor to life in their own unique ways. So it ends up being a really nice 1-2 punch of like highly stylized, brand-forward content that we create, surrounded by influencer content that makes it more relevant within the consumer's sort of at-home situations.
When you're talking with your influencers, are they seeing these visuals beforehand to know so they can kind of be a part of that, or is it all separate?
They do not. It's unbiased. It's a really open-ended brief where we just want them to use their creativity in their own ways and go for it.
Well, so now, and do we have more?
That's it.
Do we want to stay chilling to the music?
These are, I think these are good day 3
And just-
vibes.
we
You
can
know,
just-
these
we can
are
keep
with
going as
check
we
out the view
continue our
outside. This feels right.
conversation. Either that, or we put back on the
Some Fleetwood Mac.
the jiggle.
Jiggle.
We will. There we are. Okay, so all right. Let's get into when you're doing these kind of things, and I guess let's go back to you, Melanie, in terms of you did this all digital ad. It came out of, again, TikTok and what the success you were having. You then would say, let's do this something new again, but you didn't take that leap to linear, which is very, of course, Ocean Spray. Talk about that.
Yeah. So obviously the spot has gotten a ton of buzz, as I mentioned, on Reddit, YouTube, all over social media. We've actually gotten a ton of credit, to your point, Steve, for, from the trades, for being courageous and taking that leap. And so it's been really fun. Our PR engine has been hot and it's taken off just organically as well. And so because we were seeing such positive momentum and we didn't have TV in our plan, but, again, TV is important to us. We were like, God, how do we get this thing on TV? So we started exploring, could we get into Thanksgiving football? How can we create a moment? Because we weren't going to put a campaign on air for any length of time, but how do we get one really high impact moment? It just so happened that when we had that conversation, it was the day before the World Series was set to start. And we got a really awesome last minute deal, which is great because we didn't have the budget at all for Thanksgiving football or Macy's Day Parade. And so we got into the World Series. We were planning on running one spot and just, our 30-second ad. And we'd see what happened. So we put it on, and you can see I have the social listening chart. You can see the spike in our brand mentions the moment that ad was on air. And then again, the buzz just started. That's actually when we got on Reddit. Somebody went on Reddit and was like, this commercial, what was that? What did I just see? And that was a lot of the content. If you look it up on Twitter, a lot of the conversation was like, what was that? But the funny thing is, it ended up being at a fairly tense moment in the game. And so there was also a lot of I really needed that. I was really stressed and I just needed that ad in my life. And so it was very exciting. We ended up buying 2 more spots, also at significantly reduced rates, also happened to air at really great times and moments during the World Series. And every time we saw that spike in buzz as well that came along with it. So it was very exciting for us, very fun. We felt like we, achieved kind of our moment on TV and just gave the spot a little bit more life.
Before getting into any results or anything, but Steve, talk about obviously what you guys are doing visually. That was something that came out new and more for LTOs, but how were you then able to sort of leverage them in other ways? Did you expand it more from there?
Yeah, so that the sort of hero assets that you saw in each of those frames is something that we leg out across the digital ecosystem. So the usual places that you would expect, front and center on the homepage, PDPs, social, and we also take it into e-com. So within an Amazon environment, storefronts really embrace it, so it travels really well.
And you were seeing that it was able to cross over as you said, it worked well with Amazon, but in terms of you didn't, because that's sometimes the issue when something works well on TikTok, but it's not going to work on any of the other channels.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we look at that brief, it's got a specific job to drive excitement and trial of that LTO. When we're trying to build brand relevance, our comps are going to look very different. So when we're in a TikTok environment, it's more how do we participate in cultural trends, find where we have editorial authority to do that. But from an LTO perspective, it's much more brand forward.
So what were you seeing in terms of results from all of that? I mean, what kind of lift?
Results didn't think you would ask, Lisa. So
What?
Engagement rates were really strong on sort of that little Instagram post that you saw. We saw over 10% on an engagement rate, which we're really thrilled with within a social environment. On the influencer side, surprisingly, just around 9 typically on influencer, we see a higher engagement rate than on the brand created content. We also did a lot of testing for shoppable content. So as we move further into that LTO period, we added a shop now call to action within Facebook, tested driving to our PDP as well as directly to an Amazon PDP, and saw a little over $1.20 ROAS, which we were really thrilled with. And just in contrast, I know there's been a lot of conversation around first-party data and retail media. Within the Amazon environment, we saw a $2.80 ROAS using the same creative. So really strong results.
Wow. So, and when you are, when you just startled me with that that comment. So now I'm forgetting what I had something. There was something you said that it will come back to me. Let's go. When you were talking. Forget it, Melanie.
It's day 3. It's day 3. Lisa's done a great job. It's long.
Too many mimosas.
It was so important. I was going to ask, and then when you said the $2, I was like, oh wow, and I forgot. All right. Melanie, in terms of results, what were you seeing?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier the balance between the produced spots and the scrappy stuff. I showed you the produced spots. We also had a lot of that scrappy stuff, and so both with the initial launch of the brand campaign and now we had different extensions that we brought into TikTok. So with the brand campaign, we actually leaned in from the influencer standpoint, the creator standpoint, and we partnered with 5 different creators to get out the what would you do with all that power message and to bring that to life in their own way. They all took very different avenues to do that. And we had a brand lift study on TikTok as a part of that, and we saw really strong results. We saw, 4% lift in awareness. We saw 3% lift in purchase intent. So really exciting results to continue. And similarly to the conversation this morning, we're looking at that as like, that was kind of our test budget. And now TikTok is shifting into more of our proven tactics budget, which is, very different and exciting for us. With the holiday campaign, we have a very different approach on TikTok. If I encourage you all to take a look at it after this. Our hashtag is Jiggle With Us, and we have a video on our TikTok. It is pinned. It is just the sauce jiggling, and we are encouraging people to duet that and jiggle with it.
Everyone here needs to
everyone
do a
needs to
TikTok
jiggle.
video jiggling.
Yep. We partnered with Jojo Siwa to help bring that to life and a variety of other creators, but she was like our anchor. And so her video is up on our TikTok as well, but the hashtag has almost 12 million views as of this morning. So it's really taking off. And that is organic. It's driven by more so the PR and the press engine. We do have some paid, behind the creators, obviously. We paid them to do their thing, and we're paying behind some of the promotion on that. But really, the hashtag is organically taking off. We don't have a hashtag challenge or anything like that. So TikTok has been really exciting for us and a great way to extend both of these very different campaigns.
Well, and so I want to get into that in terms of your mix. Like you mentioned that now it is very much a part of what it's no longer just that test. But when all is said and done across what is the percentage when you're talking about where you're really going to stand with this younger crowd that you're going with and invest in, as opposed to the channels that you're reaching the core audience, core consumer?
Yeah, and I mean, it's still, I think, TikTok's still never going to be to the budget that we put towards, our video and TV and what have you. But I think it's definitely going to increase in terms of the percentage that we're able to allocate there. But it's interesting because, again, we've historically, to this point, we've only advertised by putting paid behind our creator content. So we're trying to figure out now, like, how do we bring brand messaging into TikTok in the right way, in an authentic way? And I think that's going to be a challenge for us, but that's where we're going to start adding budget to continue to test like a different way in on that platform.
Yep.
Fast forward to next year and we'll have TikTok case studies and can share learnings, but right
we'll
now
be back.
everyone's
I'm
learning.
We'll hold you to that. But well, in terms of now for you, all of this you were talking about for LTOs, and then that's very different from when you're talking brand. And you have certain competitors, and I know because I drink Premier Nutrition, so I'm a fan. But so how are you differentiating yourself, and can this carry over to that full brand campaign?
That's a good question. Maybe we'll bring Nick up, head of brand, to have some dialogue on that one. I think to a degree, yes. I mean, flavor is a key component to the brand, but we stand for more than product. And so I think when we think brand campaigns, it's going to be more anchored in the emotional connection and sort of a bigger brand idea with flavor as a component. So I think it'll be less kind of flavor-led and more about emotion.
So is it flavor is no longer the hero, is now more the emotion the hero? Or am I
think
saying
so,
that
and flavor is more of an RTB, but I can't, these things are in the works, so I can't go too deep into that, Lisa.
We won't tell anyone. Let's talk future, and then we'll open it up to everyone. But just in terms of, you both have learned a lot from these, and obviously things are going to change with TikTok, but what else are you, from all of this, those learnings, what's the most valuable to you?
Yeah, I think, again, for us, it's been just really better balancing both from a creative and a media plan standpoint, like giving ourselves more opportunity to do more of the scrappy side, to lean in and have creators, work for us and help drive that message forward. And then again, from the media plan standpoint, like, focusing a little bit less on TV and video, and that's still a very important part of our plan. It's, really strong ROAS from our marketing mix results, and so we're never going to walk away from it, but it's just balancing and creating different types of content for other platforms that bring us to a different audience and bring our brand to life in a different way. So we're just going to be continuing to do a lot of that.
And Steve? On
learnings. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, Lisa? Future, I think, TikTok, we invested a lot. It was the top of our learning agenda for this year. We approached it quite thoughtfully. I think we established 5 different segments based on interests. We customized creative based on those segments. We ran some evergreen creative. So we've learned a lot. I think it's still going to be a part of the mix. To what extent remains to be seen, because I think there's brand connection opportunity to have there. How much it's going to drive volume, we'll see. But I think, yes, it'll definitely be part of our mix. And as we look forward, typically, in a brand building phase, we're going to be looking for more mass awareness, a lot of connected TV, potentially TV. Social works really hard for us, despite, yes, Sarah, the costs are going up, but it still has high ROI. So yeah, it'll be a mixed approach.
Got it. Do we have any questions for anyone?
Great chat, everyone. Question on social. So I understand you're probably are still working in the mix between digital and social, but given TikTok coming up, what role does each of these platforms now play for you between Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? And are you taking a step back from Facebook, or do you still see that playing a demographic role for you?
It's a great question, and it's one that has budget implications and resource implications. So to date, TikTok has been an and, not an or. It's not a replacement. Our consumer still is spending a lot of time on Facebook. We still see engagement and results there. Instagram is potentially our #1 focus as a platform, and TikTok is right there as a close two, and kind of came out of nowhere. So they all have their own distinct roles within our publishing strategy. We think about what kind of content. We have content pillars that all kind of come to the forefront in respective channels where we think they're going to work the hardest. So we're very intentional on how we use them. But TikTok is in addition to, not replacing anything.
And we are very much the same. Meta is still really important for us. And I think more so from an audience standpoint. So, on TikTok, we're reaching a different audience. It's exciting. It's great to bring that to life. But we actually use purchase-based audiences more so on Meta. And that's, what I mentioned earlier in terms of our retention strategy. That's really important for us. We do both prospecting and retargeting and retention, but we can bring audiences from, we partner with Oracle and we buy purchase-based audiences from them. So we can target our lapsed buyers, we can target current buyers, and we can do that really effectively on Facebook and Instagram, and that's not something that we can do today on TikTok.
So kind of a related question, because again, just over the past couple of days, I'm kind of hearing a constant theme, like people are kind of maybe like deprioritizing Meta because the costs are going up. Everyone's flocking to TikTok. What does life after TikTok look like? I mean, because it feels like everybody's kind of going from thing to thing, and I'm just wondering, like, what's the next thing? Is it Web3, like Lexi was talking about? Is it like, so as you're thinking about like next year, you guys did a lot of testing with TikTok this year. Like, are you looking at different bets next year in terms of like other places that you're going to try and reach audiences?
From our perspective, you got it. I think we're monitoring the metaverse. That's definitely the next thing that we're interested in. Now, just as I said about TikTok, we weren't really ready, and so hopefully we can be a little bit more planful this time. So we don't have any immediate plans, but we're evaluating the space. We're learning. I think over this next year for us, it's probably just going to be doing more of the tried and true and keeping an eye on that and finding the right opportunity and the right time. But that's definitely the next thing, like, on our radar.
Yeah, I would say we're in the same spot. And just to clarify, we're not deprioritizing Meta. It's still very much a part. But TikTok is the area that we're leaning into and where we're really emphasizing learning. I would say metaverse definitely is on the radar. For us, we have to also, as much as digital marketers, we aspire to consistently push and be innovative. We have to keep the consumer in mind. So it's really going to depend on making sure our consumer is there.
It's funny. I just want to add, I have to say, like with TikTok, when I first started with Media Posts, which was just pre-COVID, everyone wanted something on TikTok, but no one was doing it. Like we finally found someone during virtual that actually had TikTok campaigns. And I feel like that's where we're at. Like that's with Lexi when she was telling me, like, no, this is what you're talking about. Because there's just, I think it's like, so is it going to be the same way? Like, are we going to start seeing, okay, maybe 2 years from now, people can talk about their case, what they're doing on Metaverse? I mean, do you feel like that's kind of the time period, the time frame, or do you think this will be a little quicker? Are people ready to, try things faster?
I won't pretend to be an expert on the adoption rate of the metaverse, but I think that
Why?
you really have to keep in mind the experience of the user and why they're there, which is probably not unlike gaming, which is proving to be a viable touch point or vehicle for reaching consumers with brand messaging. But it is incredibly immersive. Does everyone have Oculus? Anyone experienced it? It is incredibly immersive. So I think the opportunity it creates for brands will be unlike other vehicles because it's virtually real.
I agree. I wish I knew the crystal ball of what was going to happen. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it was interesting because with TikTok, I think a lot of that was driven by COVID. Like, my millennials weren't on the platform really until COVID, and then we're like, well, we're stuck at home. let's figure out this TikTok thing, and the platform, skyrocketed. So, maybe there will be a moment like that brings the metaverse. Maybe it'll organically grow, which I think would take a little bit more time, but I don't know. We'll have to see.
To be continued. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you guys so much. Give these guys a big round of applause. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Melanie.